Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. This is a special Ask Whatever, or at least it feels that way for me. For you, it's probably going to feel the same as any other Ask Whatever, but today's questions all came in during my webinar at the beginning of October, where I answered questions live for the first time. It was a lot of fun. I'm not going to go back and look at the answers that I gave that night, but I do want to answer some of the questions more thoroughly, and I want to have the chance to answer the questions that I couldn't get to because we ran out of time. If you would like to see the webinar, the replay is available, and I'll send you the worksheets that I developed and gave out that night too. What I did was I took two of my favorite tips from my Get Started for the Last Time guide, and I chose them because I think they have the biggest impact on your weight loss the fastest. And the worksheets are so that you've got some actual guidance to implement the strategies. It's all free, and you can grab yours through the link in the notes. I have an absolute ton to get to. I am going to try and get to all of the questions, but I'm also going to limit myself to 2 episodes for this one. So we're going to see how it goes. All right. Our first question is, how do I get more fiber and protein in each day? I'm already logging calories on an app and it's been a struggle. The key here, I think, is that you're already tracking on an app. So I'm assuming and hoping that your app is also automatically tracking things like protein and fiber. MyFitnessPal does, the free version. I would increase fiber gradually. And there are lots of ways that you can do it. It can be something as simple as sprinkling a handful of something on your cereal or your yogurt. You can add fiber to drinks. Having the fruit instead of the juice is one of the shortest distances between 2 points with this one. It doesn't have to be, like single source fiber from an organic farm where they only play easy listening music. No, you just want a mix of soluble and insoluble fibers. And I just finished about 56 rants about this in the episodes that I've done over the last couple of months. And we've got a boatload to get to today. So I'm not going to go off on a fiber rant right now. I will say, though, that of the 2 things that you've singled out, I would focus more on the fiber. And yes, Gladys, I know, but this little poppy is going to stand tall. Just come for my head if you want. Yep, yeah, protein, blah, blah, blah. Message received. It's all anybody's talking about right now. And protein is great. It's terrific stuff. Protein-dense foods, though, aren't that hard to find. And you're probably already eating a whack of them. But what does your fiber look like? I know it's not sexy or trendy, but those things aren't my job. Don't expect it to be easy. I know tracking is a struggle. It's pretty rare for somebody to be like, ooh, this tracking stuff is just so much fun. It's exhilarating. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that most people aren't all that keen on it, which, it makes sense, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons for that, and we don't need to go into them today, but this is like any other skill set. It takes time to build your proficiency, to get good at it, and it also gets easier the more you do it. So you want 0.8 grams of protein per kilo you weigh, or 0.36 grams per pound you weigh. If you're a woman, you want 21 to 26 grams of fiber a day. Men need 30 to 38 grams. Figure out how much of each of those things you're getting now, and then work incrementally building up your intake. Focusing on fiber is going to really help you with your calories too. Fiber-dense foods can often be lower in calories, and they leave you feeling fuller longer, which is going to help you with managing your calories overall. Number 2, what do you recommend for a calorie deficit each day? 500 calories. I'm right there with the usual general recommendation. It got to be the number for a reason, right? Math and science mostly, and I'm into both of those things. I'm also really into it for sustainability reasons. If you cut too deep too fast, you're going to burn out. When I started, I had a maintenance TDEE of 3,500 calories, but I was used to eating more than that, at least 500 calories more than that. So to get into a deficit, eating at 3,000 calories a day, I would have to cut 1,000 calories a day from the 4,000 that I was used to taking in. That's a big jump. That's the kind of jump that would have made me give up. I would not have been able to keep going. And I realize that not everybody has 200 pounds to lose, but even if your TDEE is something like 2,200 and you're taking in at least 2,400, that means you've got to drop your calories by 700 each day to get into that deficit. So it's a deeper cut. It's harder to get used to. It's harder to sustain because as you lose weight, your number is going to keep getting smaller, right? It keeps dropping as your body gets smaller and needs fewer calories. So I really don't think it's a good idea to cut more than 500 calories from your TDEE. It's not sustainable. I want you to be able to keep going, and that's critical. Weight loss isn't about how you start, it's about how you finish. Number 3, the pour I have trouble with is coffee creamer. I need to measure it, but I've been afraid. Okay, so I for sure have a thing with this, but it's weird because I've never had a cup of coffee. I hate coffee, and I have very strong feelings about it. Mostly because the coffee drinkers I know also have very strong feelings about this one. I have watched more people with absolutely rock solid intentions crumble within a matter of days because they screwed with their morning coffee ritual. Here's what I want to know. How many calories are we talking, and what percentage of your daily calories are they? Because if we're having this conversation over 50 calories worth of creamer and you've got 2,200 calories to play with every day, I'm telling you now to find the calories somewhere else. Save the calories on something else. Just keep the coffee the same. Now, if we're talking about a 400 plus calorie latte creation thing, yeah, no, you're going to have to hack that. And you can, it's doable. There are amazing zero sugar, virtually zero calorie syrups that you can buy. And there are some amazing accounts of creators who hack coffees and coffee orders all the time. Look up low calorie coffee hacks. Now, my next point here is you said you're afraid to measure it. So it might not be as bad as you think it is. And you're not going to know until you find out. Awareness. You can't change what you can't see. It's okay to be scared, though. I totally get that. Not knowing is scary too, though, right? Maybe you can bait yourself into trying by telling yourself it might not be that bad. And then even if it is that bad, at least you know and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can deal with it. And I get not wanting to know. I really do. Not wanting to know and not wanting to deal with it. But that's where you're at. And clearly you want to do something about your weight or you wouldn't be listening. If the coffee is a problem, you can deal with it. You can drink a slightly different version for however long it takes you to get your weight back under control. You can start cutting it back. Let's say you're using 300 calories worth of creamer or whatever. Cut it back to 250 calories worth. See what that's like. Then cut it a little bit more. My biggest problem with the creamer specifically is that it's a fat, right? Fat is the most palatable of the macros. It's the one we generally get the happiest from. It's extremely satisfying, and our bodies reward us for eating fats. They're also 9 calories a gram instead of 4 calories a gram that carbs and protein have, right? So the issue is that when you're replacing a fat, which is the shortest distance between 2 points when you're also trying to slash calories from something, you're also slashing palatability and satisfaction. And I don't care how much sweetener you throw at it, it can be really hard to keep whatever it is that you're hacking to get it to stay satisfying. Which brings us back to the creamer. You're trying to cut the part of the coffee that's probably the part you like best, right? Making it sweeter is your best first bet. Increase something else that your brain will reward you for. Just make it as satisfying as you can. And I know what I said a second ago, but when it comes to options, it's really hard when you're replacing fats, especially in something like a drink or like a coffee. 3A way this one. Get your awareness sorted out by measuring it. Acknowledge it by figuring out how many calories that is. And now figure out what your accountability is going to look like. Are you going to cut it back incrementally? What's that going to look like? I did make worksheets to help you with that. And you can get them by grabbing your copy of the replay. Still free. You can cut it back. You can try and replace it with something else. You can try a combination of both of those things. And the higher your calorie count is on this cup of coffee, I would lean more heavily in that direction of using both. So let's say that you're using a super yummy French vanilla creamer. Okay, awesome. It sounds delicious. But you're taking a huge hit in the calorie department. Okay. What happens if you swap that out with a 0 calorie vanilla syrup and instead of using heavy 30% cream, like what's in the creamer, you drop to an 18%? I don't drink coffee, but there is so much content out there on hacking this stuff. It's very worth checking out if coffee is your thing. There are people who do nothing but hack ice cream too, right? There are alternatives out there for a lot of things. Number 4, one of the things I have struggled with is feeling like I don't eat as much as it seems like I should to be the size that I am. I'm over 300 pounds and I don't eat nearly these quantities that she describes. I'm the she in this, for instance. But I know that it's partly because I'm more sedentary with a desk job. So this was actually one of the biggest struggles for me too. And I know that I have my crazy examples like the salad dressing I used to eat and the pop and stuff. But the rest of the time, I genuinely felt like I wasn't eating that much. I would tell people that I didn't understand how I could be so big when I ate so little. I also didn't know. Okay. I had no clue how much of this stuff I was using until I started measuring things out and started seeing what the caloric cost was. The bigger piece, though, is that it's not always about the quantities, it's about calorie density. Like maybe I only had 3 or 4 slices of pizza, but each of them had at least double cheese. Maybe I was only having one Big Mac, but it had extra cheese on it too, and no lettuce. I dipped my French fries in mayo. I added a couple of extra marshmallows to my hot chocolate. I put a little extra butter on my popcorn. Little things that all added up that I couldn't really see because it was just a tiny bit here and a little bit over there. A Big Mac meal with a large fries and a large Coke is 1,400 calories flat. I did the math. I used my app and I took a look. 560, 560, 280. If I eat that now, I have 300 calories basically and some change left for the rest of my day. And I don't know about you, but I feel pretty hungry again pretty quick after McDonald's. It doesn't have to be quantity. It's calorie density. And I don't even think this has to necessarily be a denial thing. It's a lack of awareness when it comes to how many calories are in something. I don't think most people understand that. I would eat my hat if there weren't people who gasped out loud when I read out those McDonald's numbers. And you can tell yourself it's because I'm in Canada, so our counts must be different. They are. Our products are different. So I looked up the American one because I can feel Gladys breathing down my neck. And according to McDonald's.com, a Big Mac in the States has 590 calories, a large fry has 480, and a large Coke has 380. That takes the American total to 1450. So we're in the same ballpark. And that's one meal. I realize that you likely have more calories than that over the course of the day. But even if you have 1,000 more, you're probably used to having other meals that are at least somewhat similar to this one with regard to their calorie density. So it isn't a denial problem. It's an awareness issue. And yes, Gladys, I know that there's an awareness component to denial. Don't fuck with me. But there's also a willingness issue a lot of the time and a lack of basic knowledge. And I know some people gasped out loud because I did. Not this time. The size of the American Coke had me for a second there. And I really thought you guys were going to beat us because of your French fries. But no, I didn't gasp this time. I gasped when I figured out my Burger King order a super long time ago. So I know what it's like to be shocked. I don't want to be nitpicky, but you said you feel like you don't eat as much as you should to be your size. I didn't feel like it either. But when I started actively, in the moment, tracking what I was eating accurately and not journaling after the fact and trying to remember what I had to eat that day, but actually becoming fully aware of the caloric cost of my choices, I wasn't surprised anymore. I know Gladys thinks that it's impossible to be in denial about your weight if you're obese, but as usual, she's full of shit and has no clue what she's talking about. And I'm not saying that you're necessarily in denial about what you're eating or your size. I'm saying that it's very, very easy to not see how the calories add up. And you're right about being sedentary. It doesn't help. I was waiting tables at my heaviest, so I was hauling ass a lot of the time, which was adding calories to my TDEE. Sitting still doesn't. So you'll have a lower TDEE and have fewer calories to work with. And it's very hard. Number 5, which app do you use to track? MyFitnessPal, the free version. I've tried others. This is my go-to. They don't pay me. I've never taken a dime or anything else from them. I use the exact same free app that's available to everybody else. It didn't exist when I lost my weight the first time, but I did use it the second time around. Our sixth question today is there are certain foods that I just can't eat less of. So at the moment, I'm totally avoiding them. I don't know why these things trigger me more and more. How do I work out why? Will I just have to live without them? You will figure it out. Something is giving you permission to eat those things like crazy. There's something about them and your connection to them that's doing it. And it doesn't have to be some deep seated childhood connection. It can be as simple as fatty foods set off the pleasure receptors more. So you turn to them in larger quantities, you get a little lift, your brain likes it. So it tries to get you to eat more of those trigger foods. I don't think you'll have to learn to live without them. I think your feelings toward them might change. You might decide you don't need them or want them, and you might need to play with it. How much do you need before you can stop? What's going on when you want them? Is it the food, or are you seeking out that food when something else happens? It's questions like this one that are the reason my program is 53 weeks long. Some answers are just huge and they're like dealing with a big knot. There are so many strands to look at and they're all just so tangled together. Stay patient with yourself. You might find that as you build up confidence and control in other areas and with other things, you'll find it with different trigger foods too, but it takes time. There aren't switches that you can flip to take yourself from one way of being to another, but it's doable. I always worry that by fully cutting these foods out, you're setting yourself up for potential future failure and for a potential future binge. So I've got to wonder if there's a way that you can put in fail safes, or what I like to think of as safety nets, into place. Let's say that we're talking about pizza. I get it. There's a lot going on there. There's lots of mouthfeel stuff, potential childhood attachment stuff, lots of fat. So there's brain stuff, salty, chewy, all kinds of bells and whistles. I used to eat a lot of pizza. And then the second time I was losing weight, I realized that I don't actually like it. What I like is the gooey cheese and the toppings, and I don't really like all of those things combined. Yeah, there are just a whole bunch of other things that I would rather eat. But let's say that pizza is the thing that you're cutting from your life. What if you bought a personal sized pizza? Or you only got a slice or two or three. I don't know what's less for you. And then you have to take it home and eat it. You can't stay where there's the option to get more. I had to go from a large to a medium, from the whole pizza to leaving a slice in the box and then leaving two slices. I understand the necessity of totally cutting out food sometimes, but I'm also always going to advocate for incremental changes instead. Restrictions lead to desperation and giving up. Number 7, any advice for people who are diabetic? Yes, listen to your doctors. Be patient with yourself, and more than anything else, take it seriously. I don't give advice about diabetes for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not a doctor. Two, I have a very rare form of diabetes. I have secondary diabetes, and if I had a nickel for every Gladys who has tried to convince me that I actually have type 2 diabetes and I'm just getting my terminology wrong, I would be able to treat myself to a couple of really nice lunches. Secondary diabetes is a thing. It's just not a common thing. 1 to 2% of diabetics have it, and I'm in that group. I wasn't born with it. I didn't get it during pregnancy or because of my lifestyle. I survived necrotizing pancreatitis, and I'm missing a chunk of it. So know that if you have type 2 diabetes, you might be able to reverse it. I can't reverse mine. The best I can do is control it through what I eat and movement. If you can reverse it, that's an amazing goal to work towards. And it's way more important than any number that you'll ever see on the scale. Number 8, why is it that having gastric bypass, then gaining back all but 37 pounds shy of the highest weight to being on Mounjaro, do I feel like this is another quick fix? I'm scared that when I stop the meds, I'll be gaining again. How does that cycle change? It changes when you change your relationship with food. That's the only way to break the cycle. I'm sorry. I wish there was a better answer. I've heard anecdotally that for what seems like a fairly small percentage of people who do take certain weight loss drugs, the food noise stops, but no one knows how long that's going to last. And you do have to keep taking the meds for them to keep doing that and to keep the weight off. I also don't think they know why it stops the food noise for some people, but not for everyone. So there's that too. I'm hesitating to call the new meds a quick fix, but that's mostly because I don't want to hear it from the happy bottom brigade. This stuff is so divisive right now. Here's what I will say. We don't know. Nobody has taken these drugs long term for weight loss, so there is no way of knowing what is going to happen if you take them for years at a time. I know that every other drug we've ever had for weight loss that seemed like a guarantee and everything looked awesome, I know that none of those worked out very well, and people started singing a very different tune in a very big hurry. Anybody remember Fen? I do. That shit was a miracle in a bottle until people started dying with heart complications. So there's that. Um, but I am sorry. I really am. Regain is a nightmare. I know how it felt for me, and I can't imagine how it would feel after you've made a physical commitment like gastric bypass. It's got to be devastating. You can still do this, though. It's not over. Bypass works on the same principle when you get right down to it as tracking or any other method for that matter. It puts you in a calorie deficit. Bypass is so effective, especially initially, because it forces a deficit, a massive deficit. And that's how the weight comes off. All weight loss methods, short of amputation, are the same. It's the deficit. I wish it was something else just as much as everybody else, but that's not the way it works. You definitely can still change your relationship with food. You need to do it if you want the weight to stay off this time. And I believe that you can do that while you're taking weight loss meds. There's no reason not to. Fixing your relationship with food isn't something that only happens when you lose your weight, quote unquote, naturally. What does that even mean? I don't buy into that narrative at all. Weight loss isn't punitive, and you don't have to earn a healthy relationship with food by only losing your weight in a particular way. So forget about the quick fix narrative that you've got going on and focus on looking at your connection to the food that you're eating and the choices that you're making. Start looking for patterns. Number 9. I know this isn't as much about the food part, but can you talk a little bit about how you navigated clothing size changes throughout your weight loss? It's probably silly, but I feel a little afraid of clothes and keeping up my closet if my body is changing. It's not silly at all, and I think there might even be just a touch of self-sabotage going on there too. The clothes issue is a huge thing for a lot of people, and it can be an expensive thing. But the mindset part, the self-sabotage, it's for sure a massive issue for a lot of us. You tell yourself there's no point buying new clothes because you're only going to gain your weight back. That can be a thing. There's a lot going on here. Concretely, though, I thrift. I shop clearance racks. I was dirt poor the first time I lost weight. Like Sean and I were living in the converted cold cellar of a century-old mansion that was so big it had been chopped up into about 15 apartments, and the tennis greens had been turned into parking. They laid linoleum tile on a packed dirt floor. The bathroom had black mold crawling up the walls, and when it slightly flooded at least twice a year and the mud started to seep up between the tiles, the whole floor would squish. And we were paying $500 a month for the privilege of living there in like the mid 2000s. I was in university full time. I had 3.5 jobs. There wasn't a lot of money for clothes as I moved my way from a size 24 plus to an 8. Thrift stores and hand-me-downs. If I'd had even a little extra money, I would have shopped clearance racks at the end of the season for my clothes for the following year like I do now, but I didn't have that money to play with. I did have a couple of what I called aspirational pieces, things that I'd bought that didn't quite fit or that I knew were going to fit at some point. I bought stuff with drawstring waists or elastic waists. I wore stuff for as long as I could, even if it was a bit big. I know it can be stressful, but it can also be a fun part of the process if you let it. Number 10, with my height and activity level, my TDEE deficit is just over 1200 and it's hard to still eat treats. Oh, do I hear ya? 5'2". I'm just over 1200 calories in a deficit too. You've got a couple of choices. You can budget your calories to accommodate your treats, find a way to make it work. Higher volume, lower calorie foods to leave room for the higher calorie treats you want to have. Or you can add some movement. Increase your activity level and get some extra calories onto your day that way. Realistically, though, those are the choices. I can already hear Gladys screaming from behind some bush somewhere that you could just not have it. Don't eat treats. Fine, Glads, but that's not really a viable choice. And I said these were the realistic choices. Not ever having treats isn't a realistic choice. I have said before, though, that I don't like the word treats. I still feel that way. Those are for pets and kids who do what they're told. And it's a mindset that I don't think is helpful when you're changing your relationship with food. But I get the gist here. And I know how hard it is when your daily calories are super low. We could use the word snacks instead, maybe, but just remind yourself it's temporary and do your best to keep moving and to keep going and keep getting creative with, moving those calories around. I wish I had another answer here, but I don't. It's doable. I know that's not totally helpful either, but it's good to know it can be done. It's not inherently unhealthy. I know there's a lot of noise out there that 1,200 calories isn't enough. Sometimes it is, but there's nothing you can do about how tall you are, right? That only leaves us with the two options that we've covered. But if you're going to try and add calories in with exercise or movement, you need to be starkly honest with yourself on how many calories you're burning. I would strongly recommend changing your TDEE rather than relying on a fitness tracker to tell you how many calories you're burning. So instead of entering an extra 100 calories each day for your walk, adjust your TDEE. Change it from sedentary to light activity. It also means that you're committed to the activity, right? It isn't simply a matter of adjusting your things, after you go for your walk or go to the gym or whatever. You've changed your TDEE. So it's a higher level of commitment. This comes back to calorie management and movement, right? Calorie management has a lot of moving parts. When you're eating, where you're eating, who you're eating with, they're all playing a role. It's hard. With a TDEE that low, I'm going to guess that you're in the home stretch. And for us short girls, this part is rough. Remind yourself that the better you stick to your plan now and stay in that deficit, the sooner you're going to be adding calories back and you're going to have more to play with to incorporate your snacks or your treats. 11. Do you have any good apps or plans you followed for a gym routine / weightlifting? No. I'm sorry, but I don't. That's not my lane. I follow a physiotherapy style regimen at the gym, so I am the last person you probably want to talk to about this. This is a very wide lane, though, with a lot of drivers. There are accounts and channels and podcasts by the thousands dedicated to this stuff. And I know that's not really helpful because how are you supposed to pick somebody? Here's what I would do. I would hop on Instagram or Google or YouTube and I would get really specific, insanely specific. What are you looking for? Do you want to learn from a man or a woman? Do you want beginner weight loss workouts for perimenopausal women over 50? Are you trying to build muscle, strength, both? Do you want home workouts or gym workouts? Do you want to be outside or inside? Do you want a gentle approach or a tough love approach? Because here's the thing. All the content creators are told that the very first thing they should do is something called niching down. So you can't say you're a fitness coach. Too broad. Fitness coach for women. Too broad. Fitness coach for women over 40. Slightly better. Fitness coach for women over 40 who've had back surgery. Much better. Fitness coach for women over 40 who have had back surgery and live in the country. Yahtzee. That means as someone who consumes content, you can get super specific too. I would try that. If you're savvy, I would tell AI. I would use AI. Tell it what you need, where you're at and where you want to go, and then get it to build a plan for you. All of the advice I have gotten when it comes to exercise has come from professionals who are specifically tailoring it to my very specific physical needs. I have back problems and piriformis syndrome, so I need a really specific kind of help. 12. Is your program one-on-one coaching or is it a group session? It's actually neither. It's never had a group session component. I feel like weight loss is just too personal for that. It used to be one-on-one coaching. So what I've done is I've taken my private coaching program and I've moved it online. I recorded myself delivering the exact same lesson that I would take my clients through privately, and I developed a series of workbooks to help move you through the process of changing your relationship with food. I loved the one-on-one coaching, but my wait list was in the hundreds, and I knew I just couldn't do it. The list was growing constantly. My boys are 8, 9, and 11, and there are only so many hours in a day. You guys are all over the world, so time zones were increasingly becoming a problem. If I get sick or one of the boys does, and I have to, or, I have to go to a funeral or a wedding or a parent teacher meeting or whatever, the whole schedule it's just in jeopardy, right? So I took all of that out of the equation. Now, instead of needing me to personally deliver each lesson, you get the lesson on video plus a summary of each video and a video to explain how to use that week's workbook. And you can access them whenever you want. You can hit pause and come back later. You can replay them as many times as you want to. The other two big reasons are length and cost. The program is 53 weeks long, which sounds like a long time until I remind you that most people lose a pound to a pound and a half a week. That means I'm not clearing new spaces very quickly. It's a problem. Cost, big problem. It was a 5-figure problem. By making the program available online whenever you want it and cutting myself out of the real-time equation, I also cut the cost by about 90%. So there's that. I want to help as many people as I can, so I slashed the price. So no, the program isn't one-on-one coaching or group coaching. It's something else entirely. It's more of an immersive weight loss experience, and you don't need an appointment with me to do it anymore. You can just do it whenever you want to. Number 13, as for my goal weight, I'm plugging it in only a portion at a time. I need to lose 70, so I put on the app that I want to drop 15 or so. Good idea or bad idea? I just don't see what purpose it serves. I mean, I think I understand the mindset approach. You're breaking your weight down into what might feel like more manageable goals. And I'm really glad that you guys brought this up at the webinar because it came up in the chat from a few of you. So I'm happy to have it on my radar because I didn't know this was a thing. And I really do think I get why you'd want to do this. Because you're breaking it down into chunks, it feels easier and you're not focused on such a big number. That's fine. And I do encourage breaking it down when you're laying out your goals and things like micro and macro rewards. But it's a lie. And you're never going to fool yourself on this. I'm big on the whole eyes wide open approach. Awareness is my jam. Also, and I kind of feel like this is a biggie, does your goal weight change the number of calories you're being given by the app? I wish I had time to play with this on a whole bunch of apps to see whether or not that's the case, but I don't. Maybe somebody out there has. If so, or if you've already experimented with this, please let me know because I want to update everybody. I really would want to know, though, if it changes the way calories are assigned. Goal weights can change. Mine did. My original goal weight was 155 because I just couldn't imagine getting any smaller than that, but I did. And I'm much healthier, living almost 20 pounds lighter than that. But at 300 pounds, even at 200 pounds, it was unimaginable to me that I could go below 155. So I think goals can shift like that. And you definitely can break your goal down in other ways. But until I know more about how the apps work with this, I would enter your total goal. Can you tell me your thoughts on incorporating protein powder into recipes? So this one is like the gym routine and weightlifting question. It's not my lane. But in my case, it's for a super specific reason. I am not allowed to use protein powders. And every time I say this, I always say why, because I don't have anything against them at all. I'm missing the tail and part of one side of my pancreas. I have no gallbladder. I have kidney disease and secondary diabetes. So unless you check all of those boxes, and at least 5 of the specialists on your team have told you that you can't have protein powders, I think they're perfectly fine. And so long as they're not screwing with your calories, go for it. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm actually indifferent. This is a bacon and bubblegum thing. So long as you're in a calorie deficit, it doesn't matter what you eat. I will say this though, watch the calories. Remember too, that you don't need enormous amounts of protein to lose weight. If you're losing weight and trying to become a bodybuilder at the same time, that's a whole other kettle of kittens. But if you're just trying to lose weight, massive amounts of protein aren't necessary. There are some amazing recipe accounts out there that show you how to incorporate protein powders and shakes, the fancy protein milks, and all of that stuff, and they are very worth checking out. 15, I work as a nurse. 3 12-hour shifts. I eat 1,500 calories a day. I think I overeat at 8 p.m. when I'm home. Suggestions. Thank you for being a nurse. I wasn't going to say anything, but you know I love my nurses, so thank you. Thank you. I don't want to go because I'll cry, but I'm not going to do that. All right, we're going to answer the question seriously now. Do I have any suggestions? 1,500 calories a day. You think you're overeating at 8 o'clock at night when you get home. Yes, here's my suggestion. Save calories for when you get home. Lean into it. This might be a really bad way to end today's episode because it might really set the Gladys's off. And I have found that it's a really good idea to try and distract them with something else when I get to the end of these episodes. There are multiple ways you can approach this. And depending on how much time we have left in this episode, I might go into a couple of them. But here's my knee-jerk answer. Find a way to have more calories at night. Your job is unbelievably stressful, and life is generally stressful enough for everybody, let alone a nurse. Let yourself have it. See what happens though, because I found that letting myself have it, it bled into other things, right? Giving myself permission to eat guilt-free at night made the days easier. Lower calorie options during the day would let you bank calories for 8 at night when the world finally slows down enough for you to indulge yourself with food. I am not going to address your 1,500 calories a day. I don't want you to think I'm ignoring it, but I'm not going to address it because I don't have any other information. So I have no way of knowing if that's an appropriate number to get you into a deficit. And maybe this is something you only need to do on the days that you're on shift. Or maybe it's a style of eating that you'll want to carry over onto the other days of the week. You also didn't seem sure when you were overeating. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is start tracking, right? As you go, so that you know precisely when you're starting to overeat. 3A weigh it and get a handle on when you're eating, the way that you're spreading your calories across your day. Once you do that, you'll have a starting point to start moving some calories around to accommodate the night eating. I would like to give you a starting point for anyone out there who might be looking for one. My guide to get started for the last time is still free, completely free, and it will always be free. And it is available to anyone who wants it at any point in their weight loss journey. It's not just for people who are starting out. It's 11 things that you can incorporate so that you're changing your relationship with food while you're getting the weight off. And the link is in the notes, or you can head over to disruptingobesity.com and grab it there. Next week, I'm going to answer some more of the questions that came in during the webinar. I'm taking a look at 14 more. Then I think I'm going to do some very holiday specific episodes before we head into the new year. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, please be sure to send in your questions. Have an awesome week. Keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. You totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.